Okay, at the risk of putting everyone off playing the King's Gambit for good, I'm going to show you this game played against a 2700 player yesterday in the British Championship, Michael Adams. It was played by Bob Eames, who's a very, very strong player himself, and often can take out the big guys, the IMs, the GMs, and he plays very dynamic, aggressive openings sometimes. I lost to Bob myself in the Barnet Congress. I think it was earlier this year. Anyway, so Adams was black. He kicked off with e4, King's Gambit, and we have that same queen check invitation line. So not the immediate knight f3, but inviting the queen check on h4. However, black doesn't have to play that. Adams played an immediate d5. Now I'm not sure if this next move is recommendable. I think e takes d5 might be the best try for white here. Eames played bishop takes d5, which I think is more committal. Now Adams plays knight f6, and you don't really want to sort of move the bishop again and lose e4. So, but losing that knight square bishop seems to me to be suspect. It seems as though black is already better, clearly better now out of this opening sequence with this fast central thrust d5. If you think this is foolish for white, please let me know. But after knight f3, it looks as though black is actually significantly better after taking on d5 simply, and now queen takes d5. There's potential d-line pressure if white black tries to castle queenside like that game of Lasker we saw 2 games ago, but with a lot more punch to it. A lot more punch to it in this game, as we're about to see. After knight c3, queen f5, not only protecting the f4 pawn, but tying down the white queen potentially, to c2. So it's eyeing that c2. White castle. Now knight c6. Not developing the king side pieces because Adams wants to castle queen side and use that d-file pressure. So d4 was played, and now bishop e6. So inviting d5 because if d5 then castles queenside. Let's have a quick look at that just to show you. d5 castling queenside to the rescue. Pin on the d-file. The d-pawn's going to drop off. It's not good. So Eames is in a passive position now with Adams's pieces pressurizing his position, and he attacks with this move f4 and protects d4 a bit more. But now Adams has g5, which is a dual purpose move, not just defending the pawn, but menacingly threatening ideas like g4 and f3 later. g4 will also sort of undermine protection of d4, and then this bishop on diagonal, this rook on d8 if black castles queenside. The scene is set for a total and utter disaster. b3 doesn't look like a very quick move in the spirit of the position. Black simply castles queenside. I really wouldn't like to play white here. Bishop b2 now bishop g7. So even if d5 was possible, now there's now a pin on the b2 bishop. c4 plays it anyway, as though d5 might be useful in the future. But black always now has this possibility, which he uses now, g4, just simply undermining that d4 pawn. Look at all this intense pressure Adams is exerting on white's position. It seems for free. The tragedy of this game matches almost the tragedy of my game versus Eames, which I haven't yet shown you. But Eames, reached a huge advantage out of the opening. It's interesting sometimes when playing stronger players, that you didn't really get into the ring to fight them, and it seems in the case with this game that there was no real fight. It seems from the opening, white was severely handicapped, unable to give a good fight to Adams, because after knight e1, I mean, look at this passivity, and the king a sitting target for being destroyed on the g file. Pin on the bishop here, a sign of great pressure. Pin sort of here anyway on this line, passive knights. Horrific really, and Adams finds a way of carving up the white king to sort out his only issue, the f pawn. he just plays f3. So G takes f3, slightly weakens White's king, and now Adams simply plays the move rook hg8. So a nice little pawn sack, giving Black the extra dynamism, not White the extra dynamism. Not as if the f-file is particularly effective in this position anyway. So let's see, if for example here fg had occurred, check. Now there's an engine move here, just exploiting the pin on the queen, bishop e5, and White's just about holding on to d4 here, yes, but with h2 under fire, White would have to sort of awkwardly protect himself, and this kind of nifty sequence would kind of win the d pawn, and with that the game. So White's under huge pressure, too much pressure on the king side and in the centre. He didn't play fg4, he played f4. Adams continues the king side slaughter now with g3. So there's always this idea of, you know, if knight g3, d4 is going to be weaker. But let's have a look at knight g3 here. So knight takes g3 here. Bishop takes d4 check. If bishop takes d4, there's a nifty idea. This is an engine variation. Knight takes d4, leaving the queen and pre. Sorry, the queen's not on pre. What am I talking about? Sorry, leaving the queen. The queen's not on pre, so this is just crushing. In fact, d4's gone. You know, how can White cope here? I'll carry on the variation. Knight g2, now attacking the queen on f5. Queen h3, say. Queen e1. And there's a variety of things Black can do here. I think knight c2 is as good as anything just to win the exchange. So that'll be horrific. In the game, knight f3 was played, leaving this horrible pawn now on h2. So g takes h2 check. King moves to h1. Quite a little waiting move now from Adams. Bishop f6. Queen d2 now. White's very, very passive and just waiting for extra pressure now to be exerted by Black, which Adams now fulfills with his next move, Queen g4, threatening immediately Queen g2 mate. Rook f2, defending against the mate. And now there are new weaknesses in White's position. You know, these light squares, particularly d3 and c2, which Adams now targets with bishop f5. So with bishop f5 not only targeting d3 and c2, but also the menacing bishop e4 is now threatened, with f3 potentially under huge pressure. And it's against that idea that queen e3 was tokenly played. I say tokenly because if Black wanted to, he could play g e8 here to kick the queen, and then bishop e4, but finds potentially, I think, an even stronger move, which Rivka even prefers, knight b4, threatening just that horrible move knight c2, but also knight d3, which would hit the rook. So it's a diabolical position. I think it's here that Eames actually resigned. So this is a wake-up call to smell the coffee, that this not all is wonderful in this King's Gambit variation, especially if you're playing someone over 2700 FIDE, in which case you're probably going to lose anyway. So if you want to lose in style, then you know, maybe the King's Gambit is an interesting choice. Now in this position, just in case you're wondering, I had a look further. Say rook takes h2, knight c2, forking queen and rook. So we want to get that, say we wanted to get that rook out of the firing line of f2. So queen f2, so Black could just win the exchange and still play this crushing move, bishop e4. And it all falls down now. d4 is falling down. So if White really struggles to protect f3, just bishop d4 here now. Total crush. Right. Let's look at that game again. So the King's Gambit, queen check invitation line, except the queen didn't accept the invite. Adams just played d5 instead. Knight f6, knight f3. I think so. Black's already doing fantastically well out of the opening with a horribly aggressive idea of casting queenside to exert great pressure on the d file and d4 later. And you know, the pieces just coordinate beautifully, because the bishop on g7 and g5 and g4 is all a beautiful coordination around d4 pressure, if you think about it, because g4 is going to undermine this knight, protecting d4, so it's all systematically harmonious and coordinated. So rook hg8, f4, what a passive position for white. The knight f3 takes on h2, quiet move bishop f6 with menacing threats like queen g4, which is played next, coming in potentially to e4, but also supporting potentially just simply knight b4, which after the next move is employed, knight b4, causing white to throw in the towel. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.